students or Mr. Flanagan's student group when you asked to provide some feedback. I think when you look at the questions here, I think the conversation that we had in preparation for tonight was, if there's questions that are pressing that would come back after the students come back to this committee, let's add them now, as opposed, like, we'll take our time now to make sure that the questions are there. That way, I really wish we would have asked them this, and we have a chance now to do that. So if it's something that you really want to know on a laser topic, let's put that in there to make sure that we get that answer for the committee.
Well, and I you know, I want to get the argument about the instrument out of the way before we look at results.
Yeah.
And that's because we're hopeful that we have asked them everything we want to know, and, you know, we're willing to act on it.
Okay, makes sense.
Remind us again of the number of students that participated in the survey you shared. I think it was in our first meeting.
I would have to go back and
Okay.
look. It was a few hundred students, but certainly not, I think it was 30% of the high school population, which, you know, statistically, I always, when I was like, yeah, 30%. But we've done better. I will tell you, our PA climate survey is typically around like 80% of students respond to that. And so
Okay.
we let it be totally up to them, right? So we sent it out, Frank did, Mr. Flanagan, and said, this is about you. You know, this, we want to know, we want to hear you. I don't know if they thought we were going to do anything with it, but, you know, ASL at the high school is an example of the feedback they gave us from that survey.
So the student groups that you're working with that we talked about, can you tell us a little bit more about them and their structure and their missions, and will they be involved in helping develop the survey?
Yeah, so there are two groups of high school students. Well, one is our DBCE group is a leadership group that attends the leadership conference at both middle school and one at high school. But one of the things that those groups of diverse students, like 5, 10 at most students, they talk about how did they make actionable recommendations, how do they better, you know, what are the barriers currently in their school environment, and how did they give back to that in an actionable way to make it better for all kids. So those two groups have gone now for 2 years. Our middle school got canceled, but our high school students have gone for 2 years. And then
The Eagles Parade.
I know it got canceled for the Eagles Parade.
It's rescheduled.
Yeah,
It's rescheduled.
it is. And then the other group is the outgrowth of that DBCEE group was Montgomery County. I worked with a group of educators from Montgomery County where we said we need to do this for Montgomery County schools. And so we worked last year to form a Dreaming Forward coalition, which is all the schools in Montgomery County send 5 student representatives from the high school. And we meet 5 times a year, and it's action research oriented the first year and then action oriented the second year. And so there are 5 students who attend. Mrs. Senovitis, our assistant principal at the high school, is the lead of that student. So what happens is we go, we talk about the purpose of the group, which is really to enhance our connection as a county and to enhance our connection as students in the county, and then how do we make our school a better place for all kids? And so they've been doing that work. Our 2 representatives to the board are 2 students who go. I think Ruth maybe mentioned it the other day. But we meet, and the goal is to research the barrier and then propose a plan. And so you ask if there's work that's being done. Yes, so they go to the county, they come back and meet as a school team. They go to the county, come back and meet as a school team. Right now they're working on their plan, essentially, and their recommendations. And Mrs. Senovitis leads them in those internal meetings. I spend a lot of time asking for their feedback, and they're not shy. I think I've mentioned that before. In fact, very direct. But what they have clearly said over time is, sometimes you don't even ask the right questions, and you're solving the wrong problems. And so I think that's valid, and they will most certainly see this. They reviewed the comprehensive planning survey. They reviewed the output of that survey. They have their opinions on that survey. And so, certainly whatever we recommend, I would want to engage that student leadership or those student leadership groups in shaping it as well, or at least at a minimum honoring the feedback they give around it. They have a lot of ideas. One thing I've said to them is that, how do we get your classmates to know that, like, we care? That we will, and they say, basically put your money where your mouth is then. Are you gonna do anything with it? And that I think the goal or the spirit of the survey is, are we ready to give it with the intention of being actionable around it? And that's, you don't know, because you don't know what you're going to get either.
So when they ask you to put our money where our mouths are, do they
They don't really say it like that.
I know.
But that's what they mean.
That's what they mean, and that's what we're paraphrasing right now. So when they make a statement like that, do they have any ideas of what those action steps would be, of how we could, put our money
Communicate
where our
back,
mouth is?
and communicate it back, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Make sure they know we listened, and this is what we did.
And then, yes, we listen.
And this
because
is why we did it.
We know we have the policies in place for those kinds of, reportable behaviors that have been reported. Those policies are in place, and we know that they are taken through the various steps. But I think that from what I'm hearing, the climate is that there's nothing going to be done if I report this. I don't want to report it because of retaliation or whatever. So if the students are engaged and involved in helping us with those action steps, I think they can even help, we talked about it, they can see this survey and then even put that into the survey. What should we do about it?
Yeah, I would tell you, I think kids often have the best ideas. And so I also think they inherently understand the issue more personally than we as adults do, because they're living it. And so I think if they know that they're engaged, the one thing that we've tried as adults in these student groups to say is that just because you want it doesn't mean it can happen, right? So you have to understand what you're asking for too. And that's the whole part of change, right? It's like, okay, let me explain the context of that. I could share an example right now and I'm like, well, I'm not sure if we can do that. And I'm like, see? And I'm like, no, let me explain to you why that, I don't know. But I think there's ongoing dialogue and there's merit to engaging them in, and them at least seeing the feedback. What they told me is, you have given the PA climate survey and you always talk about it, and we've never even actually seen it. I'm like,
Okay. And I think those are really good points. We're here for the kids. We're here to help the kids. And like you said, if we don't know what they want or what they're feeling or what how can we possibly help them?
Well, I think what resonated with me was that the statement, you're fixing the wrong problem. You think you know the answer, but like you didn't even ask us what the solution was. You just identified it as a problem and then didn't really come back to us. And that's.
And when they say we're fixing or attempting to fix the wrong problem, do they identify what the problem in their eyes is?
The right problem.
Yeah, I think they have a different perspective of what, and that's singular though, right? That's their experience, but collectively they've identified issues that they all agree should be addressed.
Right, and they're the closest.
But
to-
that's a small group of students, right? So how do we extrapolate that to gather it from everyone? Is the hopeful goal of a survey like this.
And you said that those groups of students are a diverse group of students.
They are. I mean, what's interesting is they'll tell you what they find is the biggest problem in their eyes is that nobody teaches them life skills. They don't know how to change a tire. I mean, really, we spent a lot of time talking about, like, and some of them don't have parents at home. I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that, and we're like, and so I also don't want to anticipate the answer from kids, because I was not ready for that, I can tell you.
So when, there was a time when life skills were taught.
In middle school, they do, like cooking and sewing. And
They do. But it's some of those other things that,
Finances.
literally changing a tire, and I had to say to the male student who said it, I'm like, well, I don't know how either.
YouTube, Dad, how do I? Really good YouTube channel.
But, I think they feel very safe in giving that answer. So my hope is that we can craft an instrument that achieves, a data review that we can then try and address some of those things. You got a bunch of questions. I don't know.
Lots of questions back there. Maggie, I'll ask you first, because
Okay,
Peg's
two
only
things.
asked a
Just
question.
when you have a student leadership council, you said it was a very diverse group of students. I just want to know, are they all successful students? Because sometimes you're getting, okay, that's the question. I mean, every child is successful, but
I mean,
I'm not
yes.
talking about-
We're not talking-
Are these the A+ apple of every teacher's eye?
No.
kind of student?
I mean, in
Okay.
fact, one student's like, you're really like,
Okay, and then-
Dr. Roach knows, he's like, you're letting me
So you
go.
want me to go? You got the right
And
name?
then my second thing is because I have kids that are 28 to 15, I've seen this, for years, kids trying to give feedback and it doesn't get absorbed. And then I have kids, show up on Thanksgiving, whatever, they all talk about their high school years. And I'm always sort of part of this conversation because they know that I'm the professional pain in the butt. But I would really implore you to reach out to alumni 1 to 5, 1 to 10 years past and saying, how, because I hear all the time, how specific was your training that you learned in high school? I don't think we're getting that feedback loop, unfortunately. I have, my daughter who took chemistry here and took a much better class in nursing school that was like medical chemistry, And then we have kids taking these high-level chemistries that they're never going to use it again, so can we do some kind of, thematic chemistry class for the kids that really don't think they're going to go into sciences? I mean, they can always take a chemistry at a college level later if they change their plan. So I guess those are the things. We need the feedback of the kids who actually went into college or into the workforce. Do we have a draw?
But Maggie, it's not just that. It's finding out from the recent graduates, the experience that
Exactly.
they had in school.
You got it.
That's negative or positive.
That's right.
Because now they have nothing to lose. Now
Right,
they can
they'll be
speak-
much more
Now they
honest.
can speak freely.
Right, they'll be like, that
So-
teacher was just, and it's not just a teacher to kid thing, but you're exactly right. I'll get these honest stories that you guys aren't really hearing. Because they have nothing to lose now. There's not gonna be retribution. So that really needs to be pulled into the picture, I think, when you're talking about,
And
Peg.
to dovetail off of that, I would encourage the committee and everybody in this room, and the administration in particular, to really investigate the satellite groups within our school. And you all know my background in athletics. Athletic culture drives so much of a school culture. And, I just wrote an article for a publication that I'm on the publications committee for, and I talk about language that coaches use that are sexually violent in nature.
Sure.
And all of that drives our culture in our school. And it's not just athletics, because you have the music and band culture, and I was in band. And you have the drama culture, and you have the other groups, non-academic, so to speak, that really can impact the culture of the entire school. That's why I really encourage you guys to think about that.
So some of the questions under school
You
appearance.
have one more question in the audience. It's been very quiet. Thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. I am concerned, like she said, about the top students, say, or the marginalized students. Yes, you said you have one, but is it someone that decided to do it, someone you picked? And are you picking some of the really marginalized students so that you get their feedback, not just maybe one or two, but the really, ones that are really struggling? You know, pull them into it.
And I would say they were asked by Mrs. Cenobitis, and it is a diverse group.
Okay.
Do I think it represents all subgroups? No. There's only five students. So, do
Should
I
it
think
be
there's
more- should it
room
be
for
more,
more?
though?
I do. I think, and I don't want to make it all about what I think.
5 out of how many?
But there are other student leadership groups at the high school that have a composition that looks, far more expansive than the group of 5 who go to Dreaming Forward. And so I think we do need to be intentional
Do the
about.
do the marginalized students want to listen to those kids, though? Do they think, oh, they're, so high up, we don't care what they say? This is why I'm worried about those marginalized students.
Well, and that's it. I mean, I think when we look at an instrument to survey students and I think we have to make it one that there is no fear of completing it, and that it really targets areas where we think that we need to grow. And that's, I do think it will appeal to students. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if everyone will weigh in if they are fearful. I don't know that.
But if they're made to feel safe and comfortable in some way, that
Agreed.
might help get more
Agreed.
response.
And so I do think there has to be a groundswell where they feel safe to answer and know that there are people who are, working to make the school positive and enriching and I've had to tell kids, we can't do everything that you want. We just don't have the money, number one, to do it all. But there are things we can do, and how could we do that? Here are the barriers to implementing something like that. You got to think around it, right? So they are a group of problem solvers, I would say. Very ambitious, though.
Well, and that's good to know, but are the students who are not involved in these leadership activities impacted right now by any of it? And how do they view those leaders? Do they view them as, we used to call them brown nosers.
Yes.
I would say that is a group of kids that you probably would not have identified as anything.
I feel like Jen picked a really
Good.
diverse group.
Good.
I feel like that I don't know the kids, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel I know Jen enough to know that she didn't just pick the kids that are going to give her the answers that she thinks she wants to hear.
Mhm. Why does it take money to learn the communication skills?
No, I'm just saying they have very ambitious ideas.
Okay.
So they want FCS
All right.
at the high school, and they want like 10 courses. I'm like, wow.
Well,
So, it's those kinds of things.
Okay.
But this instrument is really, we're talking about a group that is, they're coming up with action plans, and it's a leadership group. This is really for the district to ask students year over year if we're getting closer, to our goals. And so that's why, that's why I share it with this, because I would hope that we could agree on an instrument as a group and as a board and then administer it year over year, so then we can make recommendations that we think would help all kids.
So a couple of thoughts about those groups. If they give us some, and they will, give us some input into this survey, and we get, anybody can, email us or whatever about what you think would be good points to put in the survey. We get the kids' input, we get the survey all nice and packaged. Can we go to those leadership groups to have them encourage the students to complete the survey? Which is why I was asking, how are they viewed as a student body? Would they be leaders that they look up to and they say, we helped write this survey, please complete the survey because this can help us have, whatever.
A better school experience.
Better school experience.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a geeky term, they'll use a better term
Yeah.
because they know what to say.
That's
But-
the adult term.
But
Yeah.
that's the idea, we want a better school experience, and we have helped write this survey.
I think if we could send it to them on Instagram, we'd get a much higher response. So,
Right.
I mean, you get
Scrolling
something-
through
We're there.
If you ask the students, they'll
Who's
figure it
wrong?
I'm
out.
saying, they'll, I mean, that will help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, it's on the website, like, what?
Yeah, no, I agree. That is a huge piece, and the kids are like, yeah, we're not going to the website.
We use Ms. Barker's class to somehow get some.
But I think it's a good idea because I do think kids respond to kids differently.
They respond to kids differently and also gives this leadership credence, and more respect from the student body because they're not just a group that's an elite group that's making some, suggestions. They're actually participating and
It's a real breakfast
helping
club group.
design this instrument.
I love that.
Because like you said, I mean, they said, we aren't even, coming up with a solution to the problem because we aren't addressing the problem. We don't know what the problem is. Because the kids have a better, they're in the thick of things, they know what's going on, that we may or may not see.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what the scale of the problem is from their perspective, and so that's, the hope is to understand it better and then, brainstorm solutions with them.
I have a question. For number 25, where it says, what are the biggest barriers to your success in school? And there's a lot of them, select all that and apply. So the mental health challenges, like stress, anxiety, and depression, what does that look like? If the kids are saying that that's like the biggest problem, what does that look like as a possible fix for the school, for the district? Like how would that be implemented, just out of curiosity? Just
So
because-
we have heard that year over year, mental and behavioral health is a significant concern. So the district over the last 5 years has made very strategic structural recommendations around our mental health services. So much so that over time, currently we have licensed counselors that were added to our counseling department for our neediest kids with those particular needs. And we also have crisis counselors for kids who are acutely in need of support. And so, knowing historically that has been an issue, we've made recommendations. That happens to be the department I oversee, and so we've had to really change. We've also had to adopt a benchmarking tool around social skills and internal and externalizing behavior to know, a lot of students don't necessarily externalize or manifest anxiety, but they internalize it, and then there's a high degree of self-harm.
Right.
And so, but we have a very strong team. That was the outgrowth of kids in our PACE survey in 6, 8, 10, and 12 saying our mental health is incredibly fragile. Now, what triggered the mental health need? We don't necessarily know. We just know that they are in need. And so we are responding in kind. But, I think it's something that we can always do better with. And we now have a community hub cross-agency providers that meet monthly around mental health needs of families in the valley. So, you know, but that's, if we know that that continues to be a problem, we'll continue to work in that arena to marshal supports and try to continue to help to see that reduce.
I guess because mental health has such a stigma, I don't know that kids would be that open to seek out that help. I'm wanting to know how that, like how are you, I guess, reaching out, finding that they are the ones.
We've had to promote our student assistance process, which is, if you go in any of our buildings, there's this like huge QR code around a SAP referral. And so that also goes, I will say, safe to say, has been a huge help for us, because peers or anonymously reporting kids who are in significant need. And so then we're able to mobilize immediately around those reports.
Is it like that?
No, it's like a QR code.
But there's this QR code.
Oh, I didn't see it.
See, it's,
All the faces
yeah,
distracted me.
yeah, because this is at North Penn.
Yeah.
Student assistant.
Yeah, so you'll see those in all buildings. But yeah, we rely on sometimes family reports. You know, we have done over time QPR. We do it for all ninth graders now, and then we do it for all families. So we just continue to message that, you know, to destigmatize mental health, and that it's okay to not be okay. But, you know, we got to talk about it, so. But if we see kids reporting that it is an ongoing concern, or staff reporting it, because we survey staff too, and staff will tell us.
Is that advertised to parents? Like, that they report, like, I know a lot of my kids' friends, I've seen things, you know? Is there a QR code for parents specifically, like, hey, my kid's friends need some help? You know, like, because.
I don't know
safe to
specifically,
say,
it's,
or-
I mean, it's safe to say yes, but the
I mean,
SAP,
it's never crossed my
Yeah.
path, so I've never seen that.
the link is on our website, but yeah,
I mean, if it's not in your front of your mind, I've never
correct.
cued into me like, oh, maybe I should.
Parents will be safe to say a lot.
Well, I find that most.
I mean,
parents-
sometimes they try to pretend that they're a kid, but you clearly can read it that they're not. And someone just say, my kid said, my student told me, my child told me.
Okay, I thought maybe.
The information is the information, we're moving on it.
Yeah, I just think that, like I said, it
Right.
wasn't for, in my
Yeah.
thought, maybe a lot of parents don't think about that, that's a possibility.
Yeah, well, and I would just say, you know, a lot of times, families don't want to necessarily reveal everything that's happening, but our team of mental health providers in the district are top-notch, in my opinion. And so they are definitely resources that we try to hold parent trainings. Nobody comes. But we always do a student assistance one, so.
Do those students feel stigmatized by the fact that you've pulled them out and tried to help them? I mean, that other people see it and they don't want to be identified in that way?
So we do a post-SAP referral survey with students who agree. I would say that's not what they report. You're not going to see it, if I can, I mean, it's very discreet of a process.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a way a lot of the communications through the phone and the smart pass, people are moving on, they're moving on in and out, like, you don't always know why someone's coming in. It's not like the counselor come down and, can I see, you know, like, it's not like that whole piece. I mean, so I'm sure people know, I'm not being naive, that doesn't
Yeah,
happen, but I
right.
think it can be discreet, and some of those follows up with the families as well.
I hate to close it on and ask another question, but I can tell you since the new federal administration, there is a great upswell of stress in the LGBTQ plus population. I'm sure you know this, and also kids that are fearful of ICE coming to the school. So has anything been done to address that within the schools, to the children, to let them know it's still a safe place, regardless of federal policy, et cetera, et cetera? It's an urgent problem that I've heard.
I know we've had Dr.
My
Freeman-
children in the district and their friends, and, you know, obviously in the district where I teach, which I saw something from the superintendent come out about that this past week. I'm sure you saw it as well. So I guess what I'm asking is, can we put our figurative arms around these children right now in a more aggressive way? Because they're feeling it.
So I would tell you that we will aggressively put our, not aggressively, but we will address, yeah, that didn't come out right. Don't child on me, please, that's all I meant. I mean, I think any child who is in need, our counselors are very connected. Our student assistance counselors in particular work with families and students who are struggling for a whole host of reasons.
And then there's the kids that are worried about their friends that, you know.
Correct. I mean, I can tell you, I don't have any specific data from them. I collect data all the time around an uptick in their visits. But we do have students because of, you know, and sundry number of reasons, gender being one of them, who are daily in the offices of our counseling teams. And so, you know, we're gonna support all kids, and we're gonna support the kids who need us the most at the level of support that they need. And so I think, I haven't seen an increase in our suicide screenings, which we, you know, we do a lot of risk screenings at the high school. And so we have not seen an uptick, but it has historically been at a level that's high, which is concerning, so.
There have been suicides within the student body?
Oh, definitely.
See, I don't know about that.
What are the
So,
risk screenings that you do?
There are suicide ideation screenings.
How
So,
often are they done?
we had 83 last year at the high school.
Individual.
Individual, or it could be repeats.
Okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that they're screenings. And then we try and support them both on-site and through providers.
Liz, did you have a question?
Oh, I was going to ask, do we do assemblies on mental health or social media, all that stuff?
Yeah, we have done assemblies. I think one of the things that our goal is, and our principals have talked about, asking kids what is the most powerful. We end up picking them, you know, and we don't always get mixed, I mean, we get mixed reviews on the power of that. We've had some good ones. It's always, I'm always fearful of the triggering effect of some assemblies because we know that that's real as well. But we do.
We have all of our ninth graders go through QPR training as a part of the early October timeframe, so that's one piece there. If you're looking at, you just saw Project Live as radiators coming out.
Yep.
March 20th, the same night as this meeting a month from now, which hopefully we'll get a good turnout for that as well. So, now to answer your question a little bit, I didn't know, I thought about it in terms of the students. I know, yeah, through the county, the superintendents are sharing out information about the ICE. We just had an ICE agent from Philadelphia at our last meeting last week, and he couldn't reiterate it more. We are not coming to schools. If we know where the kids go to school, we know where they live. We're not interested in kids looking for criminals, that whole thing. And that doesn't make anyone feel any better. We wanted to see the paper that said that, but so we're having those conversations as well. We did communicate with our principals. I mean, what the message from ICE as well from Kyle, who was with us last week, was make sure you know your backup plan. Make sure that you have several backup, add 3 or 4 parent contacts. So if the parents aren't available, what happens to that student if they're at school? Not that the student's being taken, but what if that student goes to school and then goes home and there's no one? Have 3 or 4 contacts. We've already heard from children and youth literally call us at a last resort. We're like, what? Mm-hmm. So, you know, having those backups, you know, because unfortunately there are, you know, issues with people just going with neighbors and all that kind of, a whole other, you know, piece there. So, yeah, there's definitely work being done. I didn't think about it from how do we make the students relieve issues and calm, but yeah, it's something definitely to look at. So.
I will say, we do a week, it's usually Prevention Week in the spring, and we partner with Project Live. It's our Mental Health Matters Week, where we, at every building, we do a week of teaching strategies on resilience and coping and stress and anxiety, conflict, and so they're developmentally appropriate, but we're always trying to equip kids with strategies to address some of their mental health needs on a very global scale. You know, anything anybody could do to deal with anxiety and stress and depression. But we use those words. And so because we do want kids to know that they're normal, you know, normal feelings, we've got to address them and it's okay and it's safe to talk about them.
And adults are having a lot of trouble with what's going on too. So can you imagine a young person trying to deal with these things? I can't. It's a lot harder for them.
Could we add a question? Is this like the final draft?
No,
Okay.
no, no,
I
no,
was thinking-
no. This is, the goal is for this group to chew it up, add questions, offer feedback, and then, you know, get it to a place where we can share it with the board and say, are we comfortable with this being our survey, which we're going to measure a comprehensive planning goal?
Can we add another one and keep 25 with the biggest barriers, but when it comes to mental health, can we ask like what kind of mental health tools or things that the students might find helpful? Because what's helpful? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep, yep.
it might be different for everybody. Like what would they find helpful? Maybe
Yeah.
it might be a little.
Would you leave it open-ended, or would you put, like,
Huh?
would you leave it open-ended, or would you put, like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these have.
I would give some options. I mean, coping strategies, obviously, but like maybe like some coping strategies, like maybe the assembly writing week or whatever that week is might not be for them because they're too stigmatized to go over there and do it. You know, like be part of a group. You know, maybe they prefer more one-on-one sessions or more like private. You know, or maybe smaller groups versus bigger groups. Or I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do like that. I mean, just some ideas to get them more involved and get them talking about mental health and kind of, you know, I mean, I don't know what's the involvement with during the week, during that week that they come out. Like, do you see a lot of kids engaged? Because I know at the parent-teacher things in the beginning of the year when we go meet the teachers, there was a project live table at the end of the assembly, and I'm not sure how many people did it, you know, like just to get information and look. And I thought it was I enjoyed it. I thought it was very informative. I learned from it, but I'm not sure that people actually stopped.
No, and our feedback on that was we need to give it its own place and space.
Yeah, it was nice.
Because people liked it, but they didn't think it was situated appropriately.
And I don't know that, you know, because everybody's there, they have like 5 minutes to see their teachers and they're rushing around and like, God, I want to come back and look at that table and, you know, before you know it, time's up. So, what the turnout is, you know, just some ideas.
And these were really the questions were also trying to hit the bucket areas that were in the original survey. And so, you know, their overall school experience was important. How they felt about their academics, that was important because engagement is a huge factor to climate and culture in a building. The learning environment and safety, and we did have some mental health, but overall bullying and harassment types of questions. And then policies. And I don't know if we necessarily need these. They were in there originally. But you can see in the comprehensive plan when you get a chance, we talked about diversifying experiences and opportunities for students. And, you know, they felt strongly that they wanted to weigh in on that, so I think it's pretty important.
We have some of that in number 23. It seems like they want an expansion of that, 23.
Yep.
Or even a new category. Well, I think then all of our homework for next time is to review this and send suggestions for additional questions, get some input from the student leaders. The committee will come up with some suggestions. Do either one of you have comments at this point about our plan to move forward?
Then the initial review.
But then the goal would be to revisit the data, from baseline and re-administer it to sort of monitor the changing, hopefully the growth and/or the changing needs of the students in the buildings, which is a reality for us.
So a time frame would be, we're going to work on designing the final document, present it to the board for approval, administer it to the students, collect the data, and then implement whatever we can from the suggestions that come from the survey. So when we look at a timeline, we could probably, by the end of the school year, have some things to put in place for the fall.
That's aggressive. No, I'm just saying, I would want to make sure we have a solidified survey. I think benchmarking, the issue will become working with students and, for all of those, you remember your high school students at the latter part of the academic year are running with their hair on fire usually.
What, they're checking out?
No, I mean, there's a lot in a little time with standardized testing, depending on what grade. So I know if Mr. Flanagan were here, he'd be like, if you give me a survey to administer in May, I will lose my mind. I'm speaking for him. But we could, yes, and then we could have that data. I don't know if we would be able to do anything before August.
Okay. Okay, I'm just thinking, like where we can peg.
Yeah, and this might be just really outer limits, so bear with me. But any consideration to survey staff in terms of what do they see, what do they hear?
Yeah.
What do they know? Not
Maybe
maybe
even this
just
survey with the
general,
kids in mind.
Yeah, like, what do they see?
Yeah, I will tell you, in the PA climate results, which are administered to 3rd through 12th grade students, 12 plus students, we survey staff and parents. We get almost no parent responses. We get 100% staff responses that look nothing like what students say. So it is a little bit of a struggle, right? So,
Well, again, if you develop your own survey, and ask the questions that we need to find out, as opposed to what, you're talking about, maybe there's a way to get some.
Or have a teacher develop the survey.
But that's
how we get it.
Or some of those teachers that the students always go to.
Right, that's
I would identify like 5 of them fast.
that the
Agreed.
kids are either being sneaky with their bullying and the teachers aren't seeing it, or maybe the teachers are seeing one side of the story and not the whole thing. You know what I mean?
I think
There's
there-
things to get from that information.
yeah, I also think, as a former high school teacher, I certainly answered from my perspective honestly. And, I don't know if they ever want it to look bad, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying that it's biased, but it looks wildly different
And
in
sometimes-
the respondents.
And sometimes people say, there's just kids being kids, right? And it's not always that. Sometimes there's kids being jerks, but.
My brain keeps going, as I'm listening to all this, my brain keeps going back to that research that's been around forever, that the impact you're going to have on students is when you connect them to a caring adult. And, years ago when I was still working, I worked in a school district where we made a concerted effort to really make those connections. And, I think it goes a long way.
Agreed.
Did your student, bottom group students see this survey?
Not yet.
They didn't see it yet. I would be
The
interested.
original one.
But this one that you're looking for, that I was curious if they had any feedback on this one.
No, we would want
That's the
them
question.
to have, once we have questions that we think are,
Give them a more
a
final
good
draft.
Yes, and then we would ask them. I would ask both Mrs. Siegfried and Mr. Flanagan. They've got lots of groups of students that they meet with. I would ask them to sort of lay it out there for feedback from all of them, which is why I'm not sure timing-wise if we would be.
Okay, well, that, it's like, I want to be realistic about our, ambitious goals, but to Peg's point about, the various groups, if those groups, athletics and whatnot, could put their eyes onto the survey and the band and whatnot, to just get a feeling for, like, these leadership groups are great, but then if we, fan it out to the other groups, we might get some more, if nothing else, at least agreement on the questions we should ask, because it's coming from the student perspective.
And you're looking for like belonging. So I see a lot of questions about like, do you do this? Are you part of this? Do you belong? But ultimately, it was geared towards bullying. Like, is that, like, are those types of questions, like, have you experienced bullying? Have you,
So and this is the challenge, what do we do with our existing surveys? We've given the PA Climate Survey, there are very specific questions about bullying. We've asked every year since 2014. And so they are and the reasons why they think they're bullied, if they've observed it. And so, I don't want to over-survey kids either, because then you become empathetic to the process and saturated, and then it just feels like just another survey. But those are really specific about bullying.
Are there any questions about the aggressor? Have you ever been in a position where you picked on another student for something?
No.
And how do they perceive their actions?
Yep, there are questions, so I say no, because it's not written that way.
There are questions
It's
like-
written like you feel like it's okay
To hit.
I mean, it's basically
Yeah,
use
it is.
violence.
Right.
You think it's okay to say something unkind.
Right, if somebody says something to you, you
Correct.
feel
You
okay.
can retaliate.
Reciprocating, yeah.
Yeah, so there are some really pointed questions, and the survey responses look awesome until like 7th grade.
So 7th grade?
Yeah. And then you see like it's okay to just,
Defend myself, right?
well, that's part of it. And so, this doesn't have those types of very granular questions, but that other survey does. So, but that other survey doesn't have questions around academic engagement, high interest. And so this is like, we're trying to do both, and maybe the feedback is we ask more targeted questions around
In this survey.
bullying in this survey and not do the other survey.
And if you survey the teachers, couldn't you say, this is not really about you, it's about how you feel the student body is doing? And talk about students, not your own self.
Yeah, I think that is not the perspective that the data is taken in the other surveys. It's
Right.
really their perspective of
Mhm.
themselves.
Right, yeah,
You know?
and that's what you gotta encourage them not to do, because this is really about what we can do for the kids.
Yeah.
To actually survey them on their observations of what's going on in
Yeah.
in the bag.
Yeah, this is my cousin, by the way.
Surprise! Surprise, Joe.
I know we
Yeah,
try to
big
figure this out
surprise,
and no
Betty.
one has the answer, but how do you get through to the parents? That's huge. That's a huge, and I know we do everything we can to help, but how do you get through to the parents? And I know that's a hard thing. You can't, I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up with a great cousin. That I can talk to my parents, and I can do that. But how do you get through to the parents that, the kids feel that they can't talk to them, or they can't because of maybe who they are?
I mean, that's a cultural stigma
That's a
that I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know we don't have the
Yeah,
answer,
I
but it's
know.
very concerning to
Kids.
me.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I think our locus of control is
Yes.
limited
Right.
as it
Yeah.
relates to that, outside of making sure kids are safe
Yeah.
and feel safe in school and have a resource if they don't.
But I do think, like, saying at the other end of that, while it's a cultural issue, doing things like this and having this committee and paying some level of attention, that we're at least trying, I think is, in a way, starting to shift the culture change a little bit. I mean, certainly not fast enough and not, but we got to start somewhere with, we're making an effort, and hopefully these kinds of things help move it in that direction.
And I think creating an instrument that we agree on, and so we're not arguing about the instrument, and we're honoring the
actual
output,
result.
and then we can all say, well, this is what kids are saying.
Right.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Maybe on our website, we'll put in parenting tidbits.
Yeah, it's true.
To your child.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Well, and we
Put it in the bulletins.
I'm telling, well, although there are, some of our counselings do send out parent newsletters with strategies and ideas. I don't know if it's really on how to support kids. Maybe it could be better. Yeah, maybe.
So Lee, do you want to look at what next month's agenda would look like? Do we want to have a meeting next month? Like, you're just trying to think about a matter of time. I don't want to,
Yeah, it's like, what do you think? I'll put the ball in your court. As far as getting the student input and getting input from those people that have attended this meeting, we could probably wait until April.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a way to strategically collect feedback on the survey.
well, anyone here can email Dr. Frainer or
Yeah.
myself with
Is that
any.
who we do?
Yeah, and for right now, for lack of a better term, we're happy to field that and incorporate it.
Yeah.
and work
What is
through
the
it.
email addresses that we use? What?
It's like
Let's see.
aroach@upsd.org.
Or A for Rainier.
A for Rainier.
So we can find it on the website.
Yeah, I mean, before you go, I can grab a business card too, if that helps.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't think about how to collect feedback in one place, so.
Well, I think that's a good idea. If you just send it to
I was like, I didn't really think about that.
yes.
But
We
we're
just
getting
thought
feedback on
about it. We
comprehensive
just
plan
thought
right
about
now,
it.
so-
Send
Huh?
it
So you're getting feedback
Send
on
the
comprehensive plan.
suggestions
Yeah,
to
correct.
Dr.
Are you going to
Dr.
send the
Farina.
survey to the board?
Yep.
Okay.
And honestly, this discussion is an outgrowth of feedback I already got on the comprehensive plan, which is, we have to talk about the survey.
I mean, we can,
And what are you really asking kids? And is it giving you what you want? And the answer at that moment in reading that is, I don't know. I don't know.
we could put a hard copy in the envelopes with the folders for next Thursday,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're going to share out at the meeting what was discussed. And you could say there's a draft there. You have to just mark it up right at the meeting if you want to, or just get feedback to us.
Sure.
And it's easy for me to work with the building administrators to gather some feedback from kids. Gotcha. I'll tell you what, class loves to give feedback, A-push.
Yeah.
Send it to them, they got all new questions.
Or a black.
So you want to not have the March meeting for just 1 month and bring us back in
Yeah,
April?
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
That gives us
That
some
allows
time.
everyone to go to screenagers, which is at
That
7
gives us
o'clock
some
that
time.
night.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, that's true.
And that is
It gets
April
us
what?
through the,
May 20th is, I'm sorry, March 20th was the next meeting, so we're going to cancel that. And then April, I believe 17th is the next meeting. Yes, April 17th at 6:30 will be the next meeting for this committee.
okay. All right, for the good of the order, are there any other comments, questions?
Thank you for doing this.
And again, thank you for letting us have our comments too. I think that's really important.
Well, from the get-go, we've talked about this as being, a community problem, and I'm happy to see community representation here. And hopefully, once we get the results of the survey, we can get more community representation. What that looks like will be determined by the results of the survey. Of course, but I think that this is a really good step. It's in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan will have been adopted by the time we have our next meeting. And we should have, a good survey with all the input from students, the community.
I think the weather kept
The
some
board.
people home tonight, which I expected here, so, I'm sure other people use the same reason not to come out.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Unfortunate is bad. February is
Can
always
we,
unfortunate.
Can we have a motion for
The
adjournment?
last one was snowing.
Second.
Yeah.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for your hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. All right, everyone be safe going home.